If I were to say to you JRPGs from the 90s, there are several well-known games which might spring to mind. Final Fantasy VII, 8 or 9? Chrono Trigger, maybe? Digimon World? But I'll wager that one game not many of you said was Jade Cocoon, Story of the Tamamayu. Tamamayu. Developed by Genki and published by Crave Entertainment in 1998 in Japan and summer of 1990 in America and Europe for the PlayStation 1, Jade Cocoon attempts to provide a unique, for-the-time spin on the traditional JRPG and Monster Hunter game genres, which in my opinion still stands up over 20 years later. I vividly recall becoming obsessed with the game as a 9-year-old Connor, playing the first stage endlessly on a demo disc. Quick aside, who remembers demo discs? It wasn't until a few years later, well into the PS2 era, that I managed to actually find a physical copy in a second-hand game shop. It's actually one of the few original games I still have from my childhood. Story-wise, Jade Cocoon doesn't stray too far from your typical RPG cliché. A silent protagonist from small town nowhere is given the almighty task of saving the world from some esoteric threat. You play as Levant, a young man from Cyrus, a small, isolated village surrounded by dense forest. One day the village is overwhelmed by some massive insects called Oni-Boo-Boo, which put most of the local population into an endless sleep. Levant is then tasked with becoming the local cocoon master, a role once fulfilled by his father, who disappeared several years ago. All cocoon masters need a wife, and thus Levant is hastily married to a village girl named Mabu, so that she can learn Nagi magic from local pensioner Mother Garai and assist Levant in his monster taming exploits. With everything in place, Levant must now venture into the nearby forests to tame some monsters and find a mystical herb called the Calabash, which legend says will cure the sleeping villagers. With the story set up through one of the longest, unskippable series of cutscenes I've ever come across, we get to play the game. An annoying kid called Louis gives us the key for the beetle forest, and once inside we meet a dude called Chorus. He helps us catch our first beast and tasks us with finding him again at the end of the forest. It turns out that he doesn't know about the Calabash herb, but recommends we speak to somebody in the next forest over. This will become something of a theme. Inside said forest, you'll see the monsters roaming around in real time. As you approach, some monsters will rush towards you, others will attempt to run away, and some will just ignore you. And to think, it only took the Pokemon series 20 years to pick up this particular mechanic. Once you and a wild beast meet, you'll be thrust into battle. These sequences are turn-based and start with Levant going up against the monster first. Your options here are to attack, defend, summon one of your tame minions, attempt to capture the wild monster, or use an item or run away. Summoning a minion takes Levant off the field and replaces him with your chosen beastie. Your minion can then choose to attack, defend, or use special or magic based attacks, each of which can have various effects and properties. Each monster has an elemental type of either earth, fire, air or water, or some combination thereof. It's at this point you'll soon become tired of switching backwards and forwards between Levant and your minions. Only Levant can use items, so you'll need to switch to Levant, then use the item on your minion, then switch back. This is made worse by the excruciatingly long animations for most actions in battle. Put the kettle on love, Levant's doing a thing again. If you defeat your opponent, the minion who dealt the killing blow will get some experience points and eventually level up and gain an increase in stats. If, instead, you choose to capture the wild minion, Levant will launch into a drawn out flute solo, which somehow crams the minion into a cocoon. providing it has been sufficiently weakened. A successful capture earns Levant experience, enabling him to capture higher level beasties. You can then take them back to Marbu in the village, where she will spin them into silk which you can sell for money, or purify them so that they become tame. You can then either use the minion in battle, or merge them together with another minion. And this brings me to what I'd say is the unique selling point of this game, the Minion Merging. While you're talking shop with Marbu, instead of showing her who Daddy is, you can select two monsters and combine them into a stronger beast with the combined stats, elemental and physical characteristics of both. The first monster selected will act as the base model, while the skin texture of the second will be used for the resulting creation. This can lead to some awesome looking beasts, like this lad here. But be careful what you wish for, because you can also end up with some really fucked up abominations like this chap. Anyway, back to the story. So, Corris gives us the Dragonfly key and tells us to go into the Dragonfly Forest. We trek over and eventually we meet a birdman called Kikinak. He doesn't have the herb either and sends us to the Spider Forest next door. In there, we find some weird potato people, the leader of which won't give us jack shit until we hand over some treasure. Levant reluctantly hands over an important magical ring that Marbu gave to him before the story began. Does this dude know nothing about women? Anyway, we get some calabash herb and we head home. It's at this point that the story gains some traction because some spiteful old woman called Jabara, not content with just reviving the villagers, makes it her mission to imprison the forest god entity known as the Divine Tree, in an effort to stop the Oni Boo Boo from doing all of this shit again. The rest of the villagers know it's a bad idea, but they go along with it anyway for reasons. We go back to the Spider Forest, imprison a tree, get told off by Mr. Potato Head, and go home. But wait! While we're out advancing the plot, all hell broke loose back home, and Jabara kidnapped Mother Garai, intending to sacrifice her to appease the now pissed off forest gods. Before the village people can cut her face off though, Mother Garai explodes and turns everyone to stone except for Levant for reasons unknown. Oh, and Marbu, she's now a fairy and needs to be put in a cocoon before she dies. Mother Garai appears to us in spirit form and tells us to go to the Moth Forest. This forest is a fairly short one, as a few minutes in we come to the Temple of Kemuel, where a dude in a chair informs us that we are the Chosen One of Light, and our purpose is to fight with the Chosen One of Darkness and restore order to the galaxy or something. To do this we must collect 4 crystals from 4 forests. Definitely not the 4 areas we just went through with a palette swap. Nope, never happened. Promise. If I'm being fair, these 4 forests hold much stronger monsters than the last, and each are capped off with a boss fight against Levant's inner demons, which take the form of his friends and loved ones who give him a right good telling off before attempting to take him down. The most notable of these boss fights will be the one versus Marbu, who berates Levant for treating her like a substitute mother and accessory to his monster hunting, rather than as a wife and a partner. With the crystals collected, we are then confronted by the Dream Man, a guy who periodically haunts Levant's dreams and challenges him to battle. We fight the Dream Man one final time, and when he is defeated, we cut to black, and in his place stands Levant's father, Ricketts. There's some emotional guff about him missing Levant and his mother, followed by a kick-ass guitar/flute battle to save the universe. And with that, the game's story is complete. There is some additional content in the form of the Eternal Corridor, which consists of randomly generated forests with new and unusual monsters, but it gets very repetitive very quickly, and there's no new narrative to drive your motivation. While the surface story in Jade Cocoon is not anything groundbreaking, the world building and attention to detail is quite impressive. One example of this is the fact that every time Marbu performs magic to heal or merge your monsters, she experiences a great deal of pain, gaining terrible scars over time. As the game progresses, you'll notice that she starts to cover her face to hide these afflictions. There's a lot of background to this world which is not mandatory to completing the game, but if you're inclined to dig into it you can do so by speaking to a lot of the village NPCs, notably the Graveyard Keeper, who will tell you tall tales about the men and beasts of the past. The graphics and artwork in Jade Cocoon are simply stunning for the time, with each area played against a rich, vibrant, pre-rendered background. The artwork was done in collaboration with Koji Kondo of Studio Ghibli fame. The music and audio is also impressive, with each area and forest having unique music and ambient noise, which perfectly capture the feeling of foreboding, hopelessness and dread as you venture deeper into the untamed wildness. We think nothing of having voice-acted cutscenes in video games today, but Jade Cocoon was unusual for the time in having every character fully voiced. Though most of the cast give a really good performance, especially the actress who voices Mabu, this is let down a little bit by a few characters who sound like they were recorded in an echoey toilet or something.
Still telling lies after all of this? You came to steal the souls of the people of Cyrus. Is that not so? I've known it from the beginning, Mother Garai.
All in, Jade Cocoon is short by most JRPG standards, with my total playtime coming in at less than 20 hours, which is a far cry from the 10,000 hours most RPG nutters expect from a game. Despite this, it's a good ROM, with beautiful presentation, well-rounded characters, a unique monster merging concept, and a story with just enough to keep you entertained. It is let down somewhat, however, by the repetitive nature of the second half of the game, but I guess you can't have everything. Given the number of things it appears to get right, why is it that Jade Cocoon managed to slip into relative obscurity? I can't be 100% sure on the exact reason, but I'd hazard a guess that it's a combination of poor marketing and a saturation of JRPGs on the PlayStation at this point in time. It's likely that people were already getting their RPG fix elsewhere and didn't have room for another game on their shelf. Combined with the less than stellar reviews it was getting at the time, with Next Generation magazine rating it 2 stars out of 5, it's not surprising that it's a game not many people have heard of. Despite its less than stellar sales, roughly 1 million units sold worldwide versus Final Fantasy VII's over 10 million, Jade Cocoon did manage to spawn 2 sequels, a Japan-only mobile game called Jade Cocoon Gaiden, which continues the game's story, and a proper sequel, Jade Cocoon 2, for the PlayStation 2, which is set roughly 100 years after the original story and changes many elements, stripping it back to its core concept. But that's a video in its own right. In my opinion, Jade Cocoon is a hidden gem of the PS1 era and deserves much more love than it got upon its initial release. If you can find it, I would strongly recommend that you give this game a go. Did you play Jade Cocoon back in the day when it was first released? Or maybe you played it afterwards? Let me know in the comments down below if you did, and whether you think it stands up against the more popular RPGs of the time. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Please make sure to subscribe if you want more retro inspired nonsense like this, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.